This is Power Athlete Radio. With your hosts, Denny K, Professor Booty, and the Luke Summers. And now, toes forward, hips locked, shoulders set, and retract those scapulars. It's time for some knowledge bombs.
Thanks for tuning in to Power Athlete Radio. This week, we're getting the band back together to catch each other and the listening audience up on all of our lives' adventures. In true Luke Summers form, he reminds us that no overseas CrossFit Football trip can occur without some kind of ridiculous story. John also checks in to confirm that raising kids is still as complicated as advertised. He recently welcomed his third perfect offspring into this world, sweet little boy, Cash Wellborn. And me, I finally get an opportunity to sync up with the guys and discuss how I've been keeping busy for the past 7 months. Trials, tribulations, training, and talking shit about Tex. When the Power Athlete crew gets together without him, one thing is guaranteed. We will take advantage of his absence, and jokes will be made at his expense. It's officially spring, and unless you're really into gardening, that doesn't mean anything to you. This is episode 149.
And 3.
Oh, just do it.
Just print the goddamn thing. Power Athlete Radio, what is up? You are tuned in and ready to rock. You are with Luke at Power Athlete HQ and John, the Emperor, the man with the tablets and all the rules on them. The 42. It's the 42 commandments now, if I'm not mistaken, right?
No, there's only one.
Oh, okay.
He's an emperor now. That's
I can't tell you because I told you I have to kill you.
Oh, okay. And then if you could hear the laughing and the uncontrollable giggling and nothing that's even funny, we are graced. And finally, Ingo, all of your prayers have been answered. Callie back on the podcast.
Callie.
oh, please.
So what this podcast is a check-in with Callie. We're going to hear all about her adventures. She just saved a guy from a tree or something.
Not true.
Then we're going to catch up on Tex and Mai's adventure in Belfast. And then just,
I'd like to also hear about some serious life changes, like you going to India.
Mm-hmm.
And then also we had a kid. So, I mean, it's not really as big as going to India or anything else, but it's kind of a big deal in my life.
Yeah, Luke, how was your Eat, Pray, Love trip with Tex?
It was pretty good. We were chasing. What's the movie about, the dancing pants or the running?
No,
traveling pants.
Yeah,
well, yeah. It's the. I thought you guys were reliving the Yeah Sisterhood, but it's actually the band of the traveling pants.
Yeah, that's what we did.
Yeah. What did Tex's pants look like on you? Like sneakers?
They're surprisingly they're loose. Tex wears smaller pants than me, but he's a waist was 36, inseam 20, 36, 20.
I thought those were capri pants at first, and then he put them on, and they were actually stacking up on his boots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, poor Tex isn't online to defend himself, so let's just bash him the whole time.
Yeah, dude, it
sounds
takes
good.
forever to get back to the Shire. So, I mean,
No, we had a seminar this past weekend in Belfast at Reebok CrossFit Northern Ireland, whatever it is, but we've been there like 3 times, and the crazy thing is, John, you went like 4 years ago or 5 years ago, right? Was the first time out in Belfast.
Yes.
And it has since changed, as you guys may or may not know, that as they call it the troubles between the loyalists and the Protestants.
The political
Catholics.
climate has changed
significantly. Yeah. And there used to be a ton of street art out there that was, I mean, how would you describe it? Well, not necessarily, but militant?
So when we first went, there was a huge mural painted on the wall. I mean, it had to be like 40 feet by like 50 feet on this huge wall. That was a loyalist deal. Mm-hmm. And I think somewhere I have a picture.
I think it's on CrossFit Football.
I tried to go and get everybody to go stand in front of it to get this fucking amazing picture because it was this crazy fucking mural. And half of the dudes wouldn't stand in front of it to have a picture taken. And I was like, and they were like, well, and they kind of explained to me the history. And I was like, fuck that shit. Yeah. I was like, what? I didn't really realize like how deep-seated the tension between the Irish and like Northern Ireland. But you got to remember, 3 or 4 years ago, they had a legitimate deal on the table to become their own country, and they shut it down.
Right.
So, like, I was always kind of surprised thinking, like, well, if they shut it down and they didn't want to separate, then why are they still angry about the deal? I mean, about the occupation and this. I mean, but you're also talking about literally hundreds of years.
But you can still – so we were there just to kind of jump back to that mural, they've since painted it over with, like, all of that street art has been covered. And it's now more about, like, peace and patronage and shit like that. So it's still like it's better, and Andy at our host at the seminar kind of gave us some history and stuff. And he was kind of just filling us in, like, still in the summertime though, as people like are more out and about and doing things, certain areas will paint their curbs either green, white, and gold or blue, white, and red. And even in certain areas, like all the cars and the clothing that you see is blue, white, or red, or it's, green, white, and gold. And it's just like people still kind of have that pride within them. And being that it was, the Protestants versus Catholics and everything, it was St. Paddy's Day when we were there. Literally, we flew in on St. Patrick's Day. So big Irish celebration right in city center. And sure enough, like, there's the Irish pride. People are wrapped in Irish flags and Irish face paint and stuff. And then you have loyalist protests who are loyal to the crown, standing there with the bars and just like, you could feel the tension. And I'm like, Tex, we shouldn't go in the middle, but we should stand here and watch to see what the fuck happens, because riot patrol is out, the armored cars.
Where'd you guys fly into?
So Tex flew into the international airport. I flew into the local airport since I flew from Heathrow. He flew from Newark.
Gotcha.
So the airport's there. But, what was funny is, like, you can see all the fucking riffraff out there. These kids had to have been, Kelly, they're like 13, 14 years old.
It's a good age.
Just drunk.
Yeah, what's with the Cali?
Because
Cali.
I think I've told John this story.
Okay.
It's just like, so they're like stirring up all this shit, and then all the people who are protesting on behalf of the crown and everything are much older individuals.
Were you like, amid all that tension, were you and Tex just look at each other and you're like, we need to be drunk immediately?
Well, Tex was wearing cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. I think Luke was wearing like Bermuda shorts and a polo.
Yeah, so it's 30 degrees now. I had come from Sri Lanka to meet an old pal who's also a power athlete disciple out in Sri Lanka, and was
spreading the gospel out at the farthest reaches of the world.
Let's just say it was a long few days in Colombo. And I was on basically a 24-hour travel day. Everything from rickshaw to tuk-tuk moped to air flight. And
didn't you pay some guy to ride on his back a certain way too?
No. Me, John. The Sri Lankan locals are very frail individuals. But anyway, so I was already hungover and drunk, basically, Callie, I guess is what I'm getting at. And I'm like, this is going to be madness. And as we try to kind of walk around, nothing ever amounted. But I guess as we walked away and we're looking for the St. Patrick's Day parade, a riot erupted, and they fucking gassed them and fucking yanked a bunch of people out.
Standard.
Yeah. But we were already up at that point and just celebrating the St. Patrick's Day.
Was it still cold as shit there? Because I think when I went like a year and a half ago, it was like, I've never been so cold to the bone like in my life.
No, Andy was telling us about it, and I believe Tex was on Jack Street and you were on the leaning protocol.
Oh yeah, it was great timing for
me. Exactly. But no, it was the same. And I'd forgot. So the only hoodie I had, I'd spilled on during St. Patrick's Day. And I forgot to pack my jeans.
Did you spill your own vomit on it?
No, come on. Oh. I'm a pro, Callie. Let's go.
Okay.
But so I had no fucking coat and no pants. So I was wearing a T-shirt and shorts in weather, walking through the streets of downtown Belfast. And these dudes just in Texas in cowboy boots, Wranglers, and like a leather jacket with a whip and a fucking cowboy hat.
Yeah, Indiana Jones.
As the story goes. And these guys just stop us and like, hey, where are you from? And I'm like, we're from the States. And like, oh, we thought you were Canadian. What? He's like,
that's kind of an insult in itself.
Yeah, and they're like, well, you look like an asshat with no fucking warm clothes on, and this guy's got cowboy boots on. Like, what's going on? And it turned out they're a local hockey team, and they kind of pointed us in the right direction. But it was cold, yeah. And that first day of the seminar, they roll the door up so the warm air from outside could warm up, but the warm air is like 32 degrees.
Figure that out.
28 degrees. So it was quite chilly, yeah. But it was good crew. I mean, good crew, people eager to learn.
Could you understand any of the introductions? I remember when we were doing that, we went around the room and
couldn't understand a single word they said.
Honestly, I told them straight up after everyone finished. I said, I'll be straight up with you. I only understood about 30% of what all of you guys said. That's not an exaggeration.
Yeah, Kelly, the certs kind of changed a little bit. We don't let the attendees talk anymore.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's good. That's a good change.
No questions, no disagreeing, and if you fucking open your mouth, we're going to come over full speed and just spear you.
Yeah,
that's
like
good.
Terry Tate, office linebacker.
Yeah.
Nice. All of a sudden you scream, you're like, this is CrossFit Football! Wham! And then they fucking kick to the chest. That's good.
So, Kelly, what have you been up to for the past year and a half?
I have also been traveling the world, Sri Lanka. I went there probably a little bit before you, just did everything a little bit. All of my world travels are a little bit more exciting than yours, probably. No. I don't know. Just been up in Seattle, went to the police academy up here and started my career in law enforcement. So that's pretty much it.
Tell us some trials and tribulations. What have you learned about yourself since being in the academy?
Oh my God. Trials and tribulations, man. I don't want to get on a serious note, but I don't know. Training and trying to manage like a job that's not training is difficult. But it's, I think it's something that we always have talked about is I just didn't want to become like a hypocrite. So I prioritized training big time. So whether that meant like waking up at 4 a.m. and doing it, doing the grind on your own, I just refused to be a hypocrite when it came to all that stuff. So that was interesting. But I mean, obviously entering that field is completely new and fascinating on so many levels and extremely challenging. So it's just nuts. That's why I like the job, because there's absolutely nothing easy about it. There's not a single part of anything that I've done through my training or through anything that I've experienced now after and being on the road that's easy. There's nothing easy about it. So like fuck, what a great challenge. Every day there's something different. So that's what I like. But in terms to compare it to at least the academy experience, it was like almost 5 months long. For all of you guys who have done like the CrossFit Football seminar, what it's like to have to be on for 2 days or maybe more, depending on, like being with the hosts and stuff. I mean, that's pretty much it, but for like 4.5 months.
Yeah, which I'm surprised you made it.
I know, me too. Me too.
You just go home and cry. You were like, ah.
Yeah, because I was in a leadership position, I didn't have any choice to it's like you can't just disappear into like the background and just be like, just another day, like get in there and grind. No. Yeah. And so that's, that I'm sure you guys can relate to like just the exhaustion and just, added pressure of like, if you fail something, you fail it. You guys know my struggles with firearms. Yeah. That's not a surprise to you. I failed one of my first firearms exams. And so upon John's and your advice, just become obsessed, get better, train, and, eventually overcame that. But yeah, it's just that's just like the constant. Every day was just like a seminar.
Jim Gonzalez does a bunch of shooting courses and stuff. And if he's in the area or anywhere close, you should definitely go train with him.
Absolutely. Love to.
He threw that out to you, or when I mentioned that you were on the academy, that he threw that out. So that was really good. I mean, he took, just in one day, took guys that had never really shot, or Luke had shot, but not really been proficient with a pistol. And Ben, who I think,
he's like a Call of Duty expert.
Yeah. Ben was the only shooting he'd ever done is Call of Duty. But actually got these guys proficient enough to where they can draw and shoot from a holster and be able to do just basic Mozambique type stuff. I mean, just even to the body, be able to shoot like proficient enough that if you didn't know them, you would think that they actually knew what the fuck they were doing on some level. So he's pretty good in that. I mean, he's a really good instructor. And he goes, I
want to get with Jeff and you guys at some point. I think it'd be fun to go through like some tactical scenarios, because that's the stuff that I really like. The dynamic stuff, it's cool to, even if it's just short range, but it's really fun for me because when you're like most of those situations are going to be like close quarters, and so I like that dynamic moving and shooting. or even like something a little more active from long range. If once I qualify with like a long gun or something, that could be really fun. And it's just.
Have you qualified with a rifle?
I can't until I get off of probation.
In terms of like running and gunning and being able to do transitions and move, I mean, I got and I think I told you guys, when I went out and trained with the guys from Team 4, we were down at Mid-South and basically shot, something like, 12,000 rounds in 6 days. Shooting, running facades here and there. Basically we had like 100-yard facade, which were basically windows and targets, and you basically run in 2-man teams, and it was by far the most fun I've ever had in my life in terms of shooting weapons. Pretty much the most fun I've ever had ever. But like that type of stuff where you're actually working to like engage targets and working with people and like, how to like shoot around walls, climb up, and be able to, like on the facade, the very first one is basically you shoot 2 shots from inside of a car. So there's no window, and you have to take shots from a car, and you have to get out and you run basically 2-man teams down, taking targets. And, that type of stuff is to me is by far the most meaningful things. But the problem is if you haven't developed a good skill base,
right?
I mean, just, and like I told you, my experience going and getting my CCW here in California was by far the most scary experience that I've ever had in my life with any weapons. So I go to this class, and they make you go to a certain amount of classroom time, and then the second day you go to classroom time, and then there's a qual on the third day. So I'm sitting in this class, and like the instructor's asking really just basic questions, like going through like use of force, and if you come up like just basically if you've ever done any post-certified type stuff, would just be no-brainers. And so we get in, and the guy asks a question. He asks like the first guy, like, well, like what kind of holster do you carry? And the guy was like, well, I don't know. And he's like, well, I mean, how are you going to carry your weapon? And the guy's like, well, on my hip. And he's like, on your hip?
In my underpants, like a boss.
And he's like, well, like a cowboy, I'm going to carry it on my side. And he's like, California's not an open
carry,
right? Open carry state.
And the guy like looked at him and he goes, sir, do you have any firearm experience? And the guy's like, well, I bought a gun about 35 years ago, but I've never fired it and I've never shot a weapon. And the guy and the instructor was like, why are you here at a CCW class? A weapon. He said, well, I thought it would be a good idea to apply for this first. And he goes, well, how many guns do you own? The guy said, well, I own a few hundred guns.
What the fuck?
I first bought my first handgun 35 years ago, and I've been collecting them ever since, but never fired.
Okay.
Right. So I'm sitting in this class being like, holy shit. So we go through, and the guy asked me, I'm like, I got, Kydex inside the waistband. What kind of guns you shoot? I kind of went through it. He's like, okay. And then we go through, and he goes, anybody here ever fired your gun without ear protection? I raised my hand. I'm like, yeah, fucking numerous times. Not a single person raised their hand. He's like, well, do you honestly believe that if you are in a stressful situation where you might have to use your weapon, you're going to have time to put an ear pro? And not a single one of those people had ever thought about it, right? So, I mean, I go through this thing, and like, I've always kind of believed like, hey, Second Amendment, you have the right to bear arms. You can go through, read all that shit. I'm not a big fan of, the fact, like, what kind of kills me a little bit with the Second Amendment is people forget a big part of that was the idea that, you have to be ready to be called out as a militia.
So you have an obligation to train.
Yeah, so you have the obligation to train, not just be some fucking weirdo that collects guns in your house and looks at them and goes, oh, my precious. And it's about the end of days, but yet you can't get up to fucking change your TV because you're fucking out of shape. And, and like, that's the thing. Like, if you're going to own a weapon, or you're going to own guns, or you're going to be involved, like, you have to be proficient with the guns that you have and be in fucking shape. Like, being some fat slovenly fucker that has 9,000 guns and 1 million rounds at home, somehow talking about the end of days and revolution, but yet you can't fucking walk across the street without having a heart attack. It's not what the fucking Second Amendment was about. It's like, you have to be able-bodied individual that is drilled and used your weapon. So if there ever was a need to call out the militia, the people to defend the Constitution, you are able-bodied. That's the way I interpret that shit. And and there's I'm sure we'll have some Second Amendment be like, no, it's your inalienable right. Well, you know what? I always kind of believe that. And then after leaving that 2-day class, the guy asked me, he goes, hey, have you learned anything in here? And I was like, yeah, none of these people should own fucking weapons. And my view of the Second Amendment is completely changed for the mere fact that owning a weapon is not an alienable right. It is a privilege that you have to prove that you are not only able-bodied, but also competent enough to own a fucking weapon.
Responsible.
Responsible individuals. So then we come back day 2 to shoot the guns. And, I can basically get a qual with 3 weapons. It's a standard NRA qual, which is if you can't shoot that shit, you should fucking just put the gun in your mouth. and it was like shoot a 3, 7, go through. And all of a sudden, before he's like, hey, goes through, checks everybody's ear pro, eye pro, I want you to, clear and make safe and get ready and basically put it, and, once you rack your gun, I want you to put it on the thing. So he goes clear and make ready. All of a sudden, I hear this slap, and then I hear, and then I hear a fucking noise that sounded like the whole, like the standards, like when you go into your deal, there's like, standards on the side, like in your lane, gets shooken, like there's like a fight. And I literally like step back, and I see the instructor standing over the old man who purchased his gun 35 years ago and owns hundreds of guns and never fucking shot one. So we go in there, and he goes to clear and make ready and like get his shit all set up to shoot. He goes to try to put the mag in. He goes to rack it, and he didn't get the mag in enough, so it basically kind of went in all cattywampus in this. Mm-hmm. And so he goes...
It didn't seat.
Yeah, he didn't know how to clear and like clear his weapon. You drop the mag, do this, mm-hmm. Roll. So what does he do? He goes, something's wrong, and he turns and he muzzle flashes all the people to his left and muzzle flashes the instructor. So the instructor, all of a sudden standing behind him, sees this as he's muzzle flashing, slaps the gun out of his hand, two-hand jacks the guy into the fucking table, laying on the ground, practically in tears. I think he did tear, and he fucking totally shit himself. And literally, like, I step back, and the instructor is fucking yelling at him. And this old man, like, gets up, and he's like a dude in his 60s. And like, he fucking makes him sit down. He takes his guns, clears them, puts them over there, fucking takes them out, locks them up somewhere, and makes the dude sit there. And, like, I'm sitting there being like, holy fuck. And, like, and then my other favorite is half of the class could not shoot an NRA qual in qual. So
like an easy...
It was a 3, a 7, a 10. I mean, these were basic fucking shots.
Easy qual, yeah.
50 rounds per weapon. Like, it was unfucking believable. And I always think that, like, in these stressful situations, and you see it all the time, I mean, as a police officer, everybody's a fucking, 6 foot tall, fucking Olympic athlete, badass. Everybody's ready to, they got 10 years fucking martial arts training in a Shaolin temple. And then I'll get into a situation and you hit them with tear gas or a taser, and next thing you know, they're crying. Like, like that was one of my favorite ones. The guy asked me, he's like, hey, has anybody ever been pepper sprayed? I'm like, yes, I have. And it's the fucking worst experience of my life.
It's really bad. Like, really, really bad.
You take the pepper spray, didn't you?
What's that?
Yeah, they fucking pepper spray him in the face.
So I got pepper sprayed first, obviously, in my class. And then, the idea is that you're supposed to set an example in the way you behave, and you can't curse. And so you go through a bunch of kind of tactical things, and you also are asked some criminal law questions. It sucks. It's really awful. And I would never tell anyone else in my class or at the academy how bad it was, but it was pretty bad. But, kind of to your point with all these crazies with the guns, and, anytime you get into that niche community, you're going to have these, like you said, like end of the world type doomsday people. But to kind of draw it back to some of my experiences and some things that these guys should go through to understand where they're at. Because I don't think those guys just a lot of pistol enthusiasts, they don't understand where they're at in terms of their training. They have a lot of confidence, but it's not based on anything. And a lot of the scenarios that I went through were designed to make you fail. No matter how good you were at one given thing, the scenarios were designed to make you fail, whether it was to shoot a target that was not meant to be shot, or to get your ass kicked, or to make the wrong decision. No matter what, no matter how well you were doing in the scenario, they would spin it so that you would keep going until you failed. And that is something that stress teaches you so much about where you're at, like where you're at mentally, physically, tactically. And, when you think about these guys trying to get their CCW, it's like, how many of those guys really learned where they're at tactically, mentally, making decisions based on shoot and no shoot scenarios? Like, I don't know. I just feel like a lot of certifications in general, whether it's strength and conditioning or it's, shooting or whatever, they want to get people through, right? But how many actually try to make you fail before they then determine what sort of remediation needs to be done, so that they're not just putting people out there for the sake of putting people out there. Mm-hmm. And so that, that was kind of a broad scope, a broad theme that I experienced. And that's shit. There's no intensity like just failing.
Next, write that down. Power Athlete Academy.
Well, what I think we fail to realize is that the magnitude of your decision and the situation you put yourself into will potentially end badly. I mean, that was the thing, especially with carrying a weapon. Like, I always wonder, is it better to need it, or is it better to not have it to be able to avoid the situation? Like, I would like that. That's kind of the age-old question. Like, you're in a bad situation, and all of a sudden something fucking terrible goes down, and all of a sudden you're like, shit, it's better to be in that situation. Or the way I look at it is, your single best defensive technique is fucking avoidance. You made a great point, and actually that was by far the best thing you said. Is like, dude, I was under stress, and like, there's always a new task. There's always some new battle each day to come in with this. Mm-hmm. I think when you all of a sudden fall into this lull of being like, well, nothing's happened, is when shit happens. Mm-hmm. And the hard thing is you are in a major metropolitan area, which, with, you not only have drugs, you have gangs, you have homeless, you have crazies. I mean, like most people, and I know this is really hard for a lot of people to justify and understand, but most people living on the street are not there voluntarily. Like, they're not like choosing to fucking live on the street. Like, as I drive, and even in Costa Mesa, Newport Beach, as I drive to and from my house on 17th, dude, at the stoplight, I see guys that are seriously mentally ill. I saw a guy the other day arguing with his shopping cart for the whole time I was at radio. It was right on 17th where Luke's sleeps.
Yeah, walrus.
There was a black dude pushing a shopping cart, and he stopped in the middle of the intersection and proceeded to scream at his shopping cart like they were fucking high school buddies and they fucked him over on something. Like, I'm sitting there looking and being like, dude, like the idea, they're just lazy. It's not true, man. This guy's mentally fucked up. Like, so you're in a situation where all of a sudden a, taxpayer person, I calls, this guy's doing this, you show up and you're, you're going to apply the information that you've been taught within your training. And a big part of that is probably not dealing with fucking 5150 type people that are homeless. But like, that's a big thing in Seattle. And now you have kids that are on the street from either runaways or drugs. I mean, you have all of these, you got domestic abuse, you got drug driving. I mean, you have probably, if we were to sit down, you could almost figure out all the different type of things that you're going to encounter on a daily basis. And
the funny thing is, like, I had perceptions of the type of situations I'd be in. You think you know a situation, you don't know anything,
It's so like the age-old Forrest Gump. Life's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
You never know.
So, Callie, with that, let's go try to shift to training a little bit. You start to understand the demands of your job, and like, do you see yourself shifting training style or getting more into like martial arts and like self-defense type shit, or what?
Oh, totally. And everything from shooting to everything that I've learned through our training is I'm always analyzing it. I'm always analyzing, okay, like this feels like the universal athletic position, but I need to alter this because of this, or whether it's my shooting platform or fighting stance or whatever. And the long and the short of it is, the training has changed, and not a ton because the fundamentals still apply, but getting into more fighting and, I've been advised, like, I'm good on the ground. I'm good on ground fighting, but I'm not good at stand-up fighting. Mm-hmm. And so that's something that I need to look into and do more training with. But it's just, it's one of those things where
you and Ronda Rousey.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, that's exactly right. Like I said, how many people though actually put themselves in a situation where like you're meant to fail, and you feel that feeling, and you let that pain and that that humility and that just embarrassment wash over you, and it washes over you, and you just feel like there is nothing for me left to do but to get better, because you're not resting on any laurels. Just because I'm strong, and I am strong compared to a lot of people there, including like men and stuff, that strength only gets you so far. And just like we talk about task specific strength and force, it's very much the same thing. There's a lot of finesse involved and reaction time involved and all that stuff. And so, the training shifts, and I'm happy that I've been able to keep my training consistent. But what I've noticed is I'm looking at it also from an injury prevention standpoint, since I realize based on my schedule, I work 3 a.m. to noon. I realize that my training is, I still train consistently, but the training quality isn't great. So it needs to be precise when I'm in there. And when I look at the injuries that I see from officers, people are not doing thoracic rotation regularly. And so when you have to react to something quickly or catch yourself because someone shoves you and you're all fucked up, your body position is off.
RJ, who's one of the HB guys we worked with. I mean, he was on a call, and this lady went to attack him, and 120-pound lady, and she he was kind of up against something, and when he took a step back, he tripped, and he just fell, and he shattered his forearm. Mm-hmm. It was like the weirdest thing that ever happened. He's like, dude, he's like, I just literally happened to hit it and I shattered my forearm. I mean, there's all those kind of situations, but I think for you especially, not only to be able to how to use your hands, but also how to create distance, which is another big thing with learning to fight. Is like what kind of fighter are you? You try to close the distance or keep distance away. But the one thing though that I'm most interested in is not all this is your driving skills.
Oh my God.
Because I know.
What's the driving? Is there a driving fall? Like a driving?
Yes.
Oh, tell me.
Dude, EVOC, and John probably knows because he's probably done all this stuff, but I had EVOC at the academy, and then I had it after, and our Seattle does it. It's emergency vehicle, like operation stuff. And so you go to
which is how I drive everywhere.
Oh my God. I was so prepped for it. It's not even funny. I was like, this is like baby games.
You guys are in the car and you're like, I've seen John drift a 9,000-pound van.
Yeah. I'm like, whoa, we're still on four wheels. I've been in a van that's been on one wheel. But yeah, they take you to the state patrol, and those state patrol is it's all, like I said, all the cliches apply, and it's just the music from Super Troopers just going in my head, the bass line going, you spend 3 days out there. It's a lot of fun, but it is stressful. So when it's time to test, I mean, you drive the entire time. It's exhausting. And but they have a skills course, and then they have a super fast course that you got to run during the day and at night with the lights on. There's parts where you have to quickly make a decision based on a light that flashes. So it's nuts. We had one guy in our class crash a car in a tree, which was the first time in 3 or 4 years it's happened. It was at nighttime. But he was okay. It was one of those
moving trees, the walking trees.
Yeah, the ones
that jump out.
Yeah, the walking tree. No, it was a Charger that he crashed. So it was a pretty nice car actually. But yeah, I've never driven 120 miles an hour. And then I did that when, I went out there. That was pretty fun.
No big deal.
What do you mean, 120 to on surface streets, or just 120 ever?
Ever. I've never driven that fast. I've never driven above 70 miles an hour.
Have you ever gone to 80 in the van? Because that speedometer's off. You've gone 80, you've gone 150. No, I'm kidding.
So my fastest in a enclosed vehicle was 186, and I was
holy smokes.
I was on my twin. I used to, when I had this other cool job playing in the NFL, I had way better toys.
Boring.
I was coming back from Miami, back to Tampa, Alligator Alley, and I had this twin turbo Porsche, and I'm like, let's see what this bitch can do. And literally, the rev limiter hit me, I think, at 186, and I was on the I think I was talking to my mom maybe or something. I was like, I just hit 186, and she's like,
you're talking to your
mom? I was listening, so I got one, and then Daytona in 2006. We were down there, and my buddy had a twin turbo Hayabusa with an air shifter, and I remember I laid on the tank, and he had a little boost gauge in the tank, and I laid down this big stretch Hayabusa, and I get in, and all of a sudden and I hit the air shifter in fourth gear, and I see the needle at 185 just pin drop. And as I did a pass, I was well over 200 on this electric speed.
Oh my God! See, you would have loved it.
It's the best.
It was their Super Bowl.
To go in and drive as fast as you can, doing a bunch of obstacles, and fuck up somebody else's car.
Yeah, and not give a fuck if you ruin the brakes or.
Yeah, that's what we do with rental cars.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Just drift around every
oh yeah,
it's a license to drift.
All of a sudden you're hitting it, you're just fucking hitting the e-brake and four-wheel sliding and then pulling it out.
But what's weird about using the rental cars through CrossFit Football is it was only on the last day where things started to get really crazy, and I'm like, why is the drive back to the airport? It's the most exciting drive for either Luke or Tex or whatever. Maybe not so much Tex, but definitely Luke. it's like the one last opportunity to potentially wreck the thing. And so every turn has to be like 50 miles an hour around a turn into a parking garage. And I don't even fully understand, like, we're going to turn this thing in right now. And it's like, yeah, but like.
Well, the company policy at CrossFit Football when is no brakes. Yeah. So you're not allowed to use the brakes.
Dude,
so
my favorite is actually I was with Tex one time in his Lucky Charms mobile. And because it looked like purple horseshoes, green ladders, and there was all these different colors. And we had I had to make the flight, and so I jump in, and Tex is literally like, I'm like, pull over, I'm driving. And I didn't realize that it started raining in Texas. Tires were a little bald. So all of a sudden I punch it and we don't go anywhere. Then all of a sudden it's like, and I'm like, oh yes, bald tires. So at that point we were 4-wheel sliding everywhere. It was great.
Oh my God. Yeah. Some of these dudes are going to have a hard time reining it in because in Seattle, I mean, this is downtown. Like you're not going to be like operating at like high speed unless you're like going to hit a pedestrian or like another car or something. But I'm actually a pretty decent driver compared to some people there. Like maybe it's because I'm older. I know. I'm okay.
Scary. Well, what kind of car are you driving these days? I mean, we know that Cannondale you had.
I believe it's a Jeep Liberty, right? Didn't you get a Jeep Liberty?
Yeah, I did. I got a Jeep Liberty. In fact,
diesel or gas?
It's gas.
Oh.
It's gas.
I think it only is a gas engine.
No, they make a diesel and a gas Liberty.
Not a Liberty. That's like a fucking Explorer.
No, they make a diesel gas Liberty.
I'm fact checking
and
right now.
They make a diesel gas Liberty, and I'm pretty sure that we have some performance modifications for that over in the shop.
Diesel Jeep Liberty. Oh, it's coming.
My car is sweet though.
John's story checks out.
It's got a 2.8 liter diesel motor. It puts out 160 horsepower, but it has like a pretty gnarly amount of torque. Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying, do you ever want to get a diesel?
Well, I actually really like my vehicle. I got a manual, which was like a lot cheaper than the automatics, and it had a couple thousand miles on it. And
perfect.
The weird thing is we were going over the history of the vehicle, and this was a bit of a Nana McQuilkin's roommate situation because it was apparent that this person had unfortunately passed shortly after.
Vehicle?
I didn't ask any questions, but I was like that one man's, I don't know, issue is my benefit because it was like sold super cheap and like on a real quick notice.
One man's coffee is another's Jeep Liberty.
I'm a little impressed that you didn't let me buy you a car. I was looking for a diesel.
Oh yeah, you can still do
Love pickup truck. I wanted to find her a Love truck. You guys want to Google Love truck?
What the hell is a Love truck?
Look it up. A diesel Love.
Okay, I'm gonna do it.
LUV.
Oh, LUV.
Yeah, it's called a Love. Chevy Love.
Love truck. Is this a? All right. Okay, I get it.
Chevy Love truck. They come in diesels.
Those are cool looking.
Isn't that bitchin'? I always thought that would have been the most ideal car for you driving around.
Me.
They get like 50 miles to the gallon, and I think we got some performance upgrades for it.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God. It looks like a truck hoopty. It looks like
it's like a mini truck.
Yeah, it reminds me of like
15s in the trunk.
It reminds me of the Kill Bill like pussy wagon.
Another very talented, fun car. I just don't imagine them driving around with that painted on the side.
So what else we got?
Well, my wife had a baby.
Oh yeah,
that's about.
Oh yeah.
I went and saw the little guy yesterday. He's on. Isn't he doing the Small Off program or something? Like he's on every day.
Yeah, no, he. Some of the methods might be condoned as a little extreme, but I think it'll pay dividends. He actually crawled 5 feet yesterday, which is set his PR for being 10 days old. I don't know if you guys know, but babies as early as a few minutes old can actually crawl. And, I've designed, and I'll show, at some point I'll put this in the book, but there's actually crawling tracks, which are these little deals that I made. Jesse Gray helped me make them, and we put him in there, and he chills in there, and he actually is pretty good at crawling. Babies, if you ever see them when they're first born, they move their hands and feet, and they're trying to find orientation in space. And then what do people do? They swallow the fuck out of the kids, and they can't move, and then they wonder why. At some point. So, just off of some research I did, giving the baby the opportunity to crawl. And I had him down there yesterday, and not only was he able to lift his head and look around, but he's able to crawl. And we started working on rolling over, and then also that I lay him on his back, and he holds my fingers, and he can actually hold himself, and I can actually pull him up into a sit-up position. Now his head still bobbles, but he's working on that. And so,
so John, I got to ask you some questions about this because it's very interesting. But do you is having a baby ever boring though? Are you ever just like, okay, like can we just fast forward like a couple years? I mean,
yeah, there was definitely like a part where they don't really move and do anything, and they're kind of just like sleep all day, and they poop a lot. But like as a first-time father, you just kind of like don't really know that, and you're like, oh man, I hope it gets better one of these days. But your daughter's turned like 4 years old, and like you're like trying to have philosophical conversations with them, or you sit there and they watch, as they were calling Luke. Their favorite thing is they call Luke the stick in the mud. And they accuse, they just are like, Luke's a stick in the mud.
Because John, when I'm not around, is talking about how boring I am and how negative I am. He's a real stick in the mud. You don't understand. Like, he's got to vent to somebody.
And so,
the kids are just like.
And so the best is, I have the kids, and the whole deal is I'm programming them so when they see Ashley, they can tell Ashley these things. Uh-huh. And so I told the girls that Luke sleeps at work all day. So they're like telling Ashley how Luke doesn't work, he sleeps all day at work, and he's a stick in the mud. And then Ashley's like, you sleep all day at work? It's like, what?
Ashley gets back to you.
And John's just drinking a beer, laughing, eating chips.
Yeah. So so it's pretty interesting to see the dynamics around them, like seeing like kind of the like their like I guess you could say like the learning process to me is really fascinating. So there's no part of it that's really boring.
Sure.
The only part that's really fucking boring is the repetitive kind of discipline stuff. And then this is what I think, like growing up, like the minute you become a parent, you realize this, that parents don't really want to discipline their kids. But like, it's one of those things where it's like, I didn't want to do it, but I felt I owed it to them. Like that's like a big thing. Like, it's so much easier just to be their friend and just let them whatever the fuck they want to do. And like, I don't care. Just fucking, let's just have a good time and just go watch some movies and like eat chips all day.
That's what I want to do. Well, that's why I want to be a parent.
That's what every parent wants to do. But
then I'll have true friends.
Yeah. But then you get involved in this shit and you realize that that's not fucking helping them at all. Because you know what? Like I did this little thing where I did this kind of offline deal where I just started interviewing just different people that I respected and had good information. And one thing
I never got your email. That's weird.
I got you. Don't worry. I'm working around you guys. But the one thing that was universal to a lot of the people that were, Olympic athletes, very successful, Fortune 500 business guys, super successful people was not one of them. Every one of them said, my parents were really hard on me and expected a lot. That was like the universal thing. And then also I met, I just remember sitting there rapping with some other people. This was one time I was at Alta Cafe. You guys know Alta. And Alta was a big meeting place for a lot of the kids that were, within like the, AA programs. They meet their sponsors. And I remember sitting at Alta one time doing some work, and this kid was over there talking to his sponsor. And I remember it was weird, like the sponsor, who had obviously been sober, made a point. He said, if only my parents had been a little harder on me, I think I could have avoided some of these things. And the kid was like, yeah, my parents just never really seemed to care. And so I was constantly doing things to get their attention, and it just started escalating. And at that point, I remember thinking like, God, that's really, really meaningful. And so, I tried to explain to the girls, I was like, hey, Dada doesn't want to do this, but I have a responsibility to make sure that you guys get to where I need you to go. And so I can't budge an inch, because if I give up at all, or I break, or we give up one day, then I have basically done you a disservice. Mm-hmm. And, like, they looked at me and like, no concept of what this crazy old man's talking about. But,
you will.
Yeah. Like, at some point you'll, and I like the age old, like at some point you'll thank me for this. Mm-hmm. And you're an ass. And you're like, well, you know what? Like, that's the weird thing. Like, and the other one is, I think like kids are pretty sharp, and like parents are sometimes oblivious. And the one thing I told them is like, I've seen everything. I've done everything. You will never get anything by me. I fucking know. Like, I know what's going on. Like, believe me, I was as like deviant a fucker as you'll ever be around, and I was ahead of the game, and I know what's going on. And then the other thing too is, which we see really a lot in Newport Beach, is parents are extremely uninvolved because they're so focused on themselves and their career and this. I mean, I meet people all the time. Nobody has any fucking time for anything. I don't have time. I don't have time for this. I'm like,
you got to get out of there. Got to get out.
You have a cell phone. You have a computer. You have a personal assistant. You have a fast car. You have internet. You have all of these things.
Black license plate
on your car.
And then guess who else is going to get one?
Yeah.
I will never get it. Unless I buy an original car that was built in the 60s in California. It's the only way I'll have a black plate car.
So that's what you're going to do. As soon as we're done with this.
I've been looking. No, but it's just okay. So the age-old thing, and this is what is so true in where we live, is that everybody's in such a hurry that people effectively neglect their kids. Like case in point, I took my daughters to gymnastics the other day, and do you know how many kids were in there with their nannies?
I don't even want to know. John, you know how this pains me to hear this shit.
Like knowing your parents are there and involved is really all that kids need. Like they don't need like too much shit. Like there isn't any kid that's like, man, if only I had more toys when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like nobody says that. Like nobody's like, yeah, if only we had a pool at our house, I would have lived the childhood I wanted. Nobody fucking says that shit. But you know what? All these kids are like, you know what? My parents were never around. My parents were never interested. And like nothing I did ever mattered and never got their attention. Mm-hmm. So you know what? Like that is a deal. Whereas you meet kids all the time. They were like, honestly, my parents let me fail. But if I looked, they were always in the stands. They were always there to support me. They were always there. Never too, like if I'm tired, you come home and be like, let's sit down, let's draw, let's do homework. Like, what do you guys got? Like, I'll work on this. Like you guys have a little project, I'll do it. Like, share day on Fridays. Let's make something every Thursday night. We'll make something for Friday share. And a lot of times I bomb the fuck out. Like I tried to like engrave different things. Like they have all these rocks. My daughters collect rocks.
Oh, you guys! I forgot to give you a full tour, but there's quite a few rocks in here.
But my daughter collects rocks, and so she wanted me to carve things. So I got out the Dremel and was like carving words on the rocks. But I got to find a better Dremel because my Dremel wasn't able to dent it. But
I'll talk to you about my Dremel.
Well, they were flat stones, but Jamie has all these fucking rocks.
Yes.
Those are the things that are important with having kids. And it's like, you go and you think about like it's not the stuff, it's the experience of doing things. It's not the fact that we have a pool. Like I didn't build a pool to have a pool. I built a pool because I wanted the opportunity to go swimming with my kids and have them know that memory. Like every time we jumped in the pool, my dad would literally pick me up and cannonball me off the wall. This is another thing that I read a lot about is the contrast between free play and organized play. Mm-hmm. So you guys know what free play is, where you basically just like put your kids in a situation and just ignore them and like let them come up with their own shit on how to entertain themselves.
Right.
And so like my daughters go outside and like the other day I told you they collected rocks and were making geometric shapes in the back, or they create these elaborate games, and I just kind of hang out like kind of peripheral and I kind of just watch and kind of just listen, and I'll like fuck around on my computer just kind of so they don't think I'm involved, but I'm watching. And it's always amazing to see the level and the complexity of what they're creating is fucking unbelievable to me. And so they come up with these complex games. They do all these things opposed from me organizing practice, play dates here. We're going to go like all of these things.
Dictating, all that stuff, yeah.
So kids never have to really think for themselves or develop creativity. Like I give them paper, like just blank paper and crayons. And like create. I don't like, we have coloring books and they can color in between the things, but I make sure that it's half coloring book, half just blank paper. I don't want them always coloring in somebody else's work. I want them to create their own stuff. Or what I do is I sit down and I draw something and I make them color in for me. And then I color with them all the time. So I have my coloring books and then they can help me. And like, it's one of those things where it's important. Like the developmental stuff is so good. And it's just like, there's so much to learn every day that I would never say being a parent is boring in any way.
Okay.
The other day we had a big long conversation on the drive about what kind of cars they want when they turn 16. And so Kelly wants a truck and Jamie wants a Camaro. So they were like, oh, nice. We only like old cars. And then they're also,
you'll get what you get.
Well, they also hear me yell at people because like, the one thing I can't do is drive slow. So like, I'm always like, bad driver driving slow. So then they'll be like, yeah, you don't drive slow. These people are bad drivers. They're going to get in the car and they'll be like, oh, you are a bad driver. But case in point, it's really exciting to have a son. I never really thought much about it until he actually came out. And then I kind of looked and was like, hey, this is awesome. Like the girls get to have a brother. We get to have a little boy. I get to have, multiples of each. And, definitely like it's kind of a really just interesting seeing a child at like 2 weeks old and then realize like, who is this person going to grow into? And the person he grows into is directly related to how the experience he has in relationship to me and my wife and the environment. And like looking around and being like, shit, man, like.
Well, it's time. I mean, what's exciting is we finally get to enact Operation Bill Brasky, where we try to create Bill Brasky out of Cash Wellborn, a 6'8" giant who can palm a medicine ball and
finally
bullets.
Well, the other one is Luke and I sat down and we game planned this. Like, if you could design or basically give opportunity to a child with one singular goal in terms of how to slay the most amount of ass possible.
Is that what all the charts on the whiteboard behind you are?
It's right here. Yes, this is actually chart.
He sat down. Hold on. Right, he would have to not only be well read, well spoken, but be creative and be able to, art and like understand that aspect, but also be able to play the guitar really proficiently, lift weights, and be an athlete, and
start
then
a fire.
And
like it has to be like an outdoorsman. Have to have survival.
Grow reasonable facial hair.
No, the beard is going out.
No, I think it's an important ability. You don't have to do it.
So like all of a sudden he's like, 16, 17 years old. He's not only he's creative, he's also in really good shape and like a good athlete, but also is really good on the guitar and is generally just a really nice kid where the type of people be like, wow.
So like here, let me put this.
I'll see you in 16 years.
So let's say he's in a summer camp and there's a bus full of students and the bus breaks down, gets a flat, breaks down, and he's like, "Oh, let me pop under the hood." Boom, boom, boom. And he's like, "Oh shit, looks like the fucking timing belt is out, and oh shit, one of the pulleys is cracked." But don't worry, he takes his shirt off like DJ Muscle Boy style, changes the fucking tire, so rips it off, right? Goes to get the spare tire. There's no spare tire. He's like, shit, we're going to have to camp out. He's like, it's all right. I'll make us some shelter. And builds a fucking bunch of shelters and shit. Starts a fire. He's like, good thing I brought my guitar to keep morale up. Fucking Dave Matthews Band or whatever gets the girls going, right? And then he's like, oh, you're going to love this. And then starts to do some fucking backflips and shit and then quotes poetry. And next thing you know, you have like a hero that is Cash Wellborn.
Oh my God!
For that, what are we missing here, Kelly? As the female of the group, I feel like you could provide us some input on maybe some gaps we need to close.
I mean, he can have small hands. That's a real big pet peeve. At least from a woman's standpoint, they notice stuff like that. That's not something he can really control, though. So
he's going to be my son, and he also has the biggest hands and feet that they'd ever seen as a baby.
Okay, that's good.
And we also have Dr. Tom. He's got supplements for that. And just in like worst case scenario.
So when we just went out and visited the mad scientist. And he's like, he goes, it's great, the son. And so after we had the boy, he's like, when are you guys coming out? I'd like to get some blood testing done early on the baby. It's like, and then Tom was like, yeah, it'd be great. What if we could maximize mineral supplement ratio and food and these kind of different things?
Oh my God, stop it.
At such a young age, we might be able to develop the perfect human. And I was
oh my God.
I'm in. I already got the girls genetic tested through the fitness genes. I'm in. And he's like, think about the amount that you know about training. Think about all the shit that we went through, all the hard knocks that you now have this opportunity to put together.
This poor kid.
He's gonna have this uncle.
For you, it's gonna be a great experience.
Think about how his crazy uncles. He's got Uncle Tom.
Oh, dude.
Right. He's got Uncle Brewer, Uncle Dave. Right. And all these just wacky dudes being like, involved in his life. And he's going to be like, man, my dad and his friends were insane. And I loved him.
He's going to basically be Jason Bourne. He's not even going to know, but we're programming him from a young age.
Yeah, sure.
Just effortlessly awesome in everything that he does.
Like, I don't know who I am. I don't know where I used to be, but I know the 9 license plates in the parking lot right now.
Yeah. I know that at this altitude, I can run for 7 minutes flat.
He's like, and what's surprising? I could weld and fix shit too, which would be cool, So he, but no, but all of that shit would be great. But if all he wants to do is just, fucking
make paintings,
then you know what? Then then you support him and you love him.
It was a gift, Todd.
You know what though? It's like, I think as a parent, like at least I look at it, like you just want your kids to be happy and live a fruitful, like great life. And I think like the problem becomes is that for a lot of people, I think they try to like right the wrongs and like their personal shortcomings, they try to like relive and like fix them for their children.
Yeah.
So like, this is where I was wrong, so you're going to succeed where I didn't, so that I somehow am able to glean some fucking satisfaction from it. And like, somebody asked me about that. I'm like, dude, what, like, if my son doesn't play in the NFL, then what, like, is that a life less done? Like, I mean, like, I could see if like I didn't, suck at high school football and my goal was to be a football player, and somehow my son was good in high school, I would like, but at the end of the day, like, is his life going to be any less rich? And I think, just wanting your kids to be healthy and happy and live a, good life and, and have some of the experience that I've had and, be able to long, a good existence is really kind of all you can hope for your children.
So, Luke, is this inspiring you and Ashley to just throw your hat into the ring?
Get another dog?
No,
it's a big responsibility.
I
got no time for your jibba jabba. But at the same rate, I think like people that and you meet people like, I don't really want to have kids, and I'm like, then you shouldn't. Like if that's not if that's not what you want to do, and because the one thing that I will say having kids is you can't be selfish and have kids, and if you are selfish and have kids, then you probably there's a lot of selfish people that have kids, and then the problem is that the shit gets neglected. Yeah, they get a nanny, or it's like how many people do you know have dogs and then like realize like this is gonna be a lot of work, and they just fucking send the dog to the pound.
I know a lot of people like that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and you know what, like. If you're that type of person that's going to give a dog away, then don't have a fucking dog.
Yeah.
I would never give my dog away. I would never buy that puppy. And when he grew up, and like, I only liked him as a puppy, and I give him away. Fuck those people.
It's funny that I had the same conversation with my dad recently, and I just said I almost feel guilty because I don't have a dog, I don't have kids or anything like that. And he's like, listen, I said I feel really selfish, and he said it's only selfish if you have those things and then you prioritize yourself over those things,
Sure.
And
just realize who you are.
Yeah.
Wise words of Bill Hinsman.
But that's true. Yeah, it's selfish if you're trading on them. But like if you don't have the time to do these things, it's like you meet those people like, well, we had 14 kids and we couldn't put shoes on them, and you're like,
oh, the Duggars.
Is that who they are?
Be like, okay, well, that's sad they couldn't have shoes, but why the fuck did you have 14 kids?
Right.
Like,
we had to hoe the fields
like that. No, that's selfish. I'm like, dude, I'd be like, oh, we had 14 kids in my family and this, and we couldn't afford to eat, and that's the drive. Well, that's great.
We had all these shoes and no
but
kids.
You know what? You shouldn't have had 14 kids.
You overshot the shoes, John.
But I mean, to me, I think that's the weird, selfish part is like, and being like, well, or use a condom or go get fixed.
Mm-hmm.
Like we were just banging it out. Next thing you know, we had all these kids. We're like, fucking A, dude.
I don't know anyone like that, though. I mean,
but
is that a TV show or something?
No, but I mean, like, you see these things all the time, and like they exist, and it's like, dude, like you almost like you only have 24 hours in a day. Like you got to sleep, you got to eat, you got to try to do enough that you don't lose your own fucking sanity. And then that you add things as you have time and the ability. If you don't have time for these things, it's not selfish. It's selfish to want them and not be able to give time for them. It's just realistic. If you're like, oh, I'm sad I don't have a dog, and being like, well, I don't have time for a dog, so then
right.
Age all day, or I got to have a dog walker and all that shit.
Yeah. It's not right.
It's
so like, I know we're running long, but I just need to hear if there's any other gossip that I'm missing out on. I mean, like,
we did have a dude stop by not too long ago that I guess was secretly dating Miss Hinsman, and he was coming around kind of heartbroken, wanted to know you can get in touch with.
Who?
Some guy that you were, I guess,
you want me, this is a game where I'm supposed to tell you who it is?
No, we had a guy come over who was literally like, oh, I was trying to get in touch with Callie. We used to see each other a little bit when she was here in Newport Beach.
That's a fucking lie.
That's true. We had this kind of young gentleman ask didn't leave any forwarding addresses, nothing, how to get a hold of Miss Hinsman. The guy was,
we gave you address and phone number.
The guy was kind of weepy. I guess he had some throwaway phone, some Google Voice number you were giving him, but He just came around with tears in his eyes.
Listen, if I had $1, I just can't keep up. I'm sorry. No, that's why I had to leave town. I was running short of resources. There's a drought in California.
Something about, I left my heart in Newport Beach.
Yeah.
Well, Kelly, when are you going to be able, are we going to do like a field trip? Is Power Athlete going to come to Seattle? Are you coming to, what's the deal?
Didn't you say you guys have a seminar up here?
Yeah, I booked one with Zach it's waiting, it's in processing or whatever.
Was it a catalyst? Was that a mistake email that you sent?
No, I've been dealing with them before that. That was so funny. And then one thing I do have to say, which is totally off subject, but I told Andy I would say because Tex, we had bitched while being in the UK about shitty breakfasts. So after St. Patrick's Day, like there's one thing Tex and I needed, just maybe because it was a late night, maybe one too many misses. And it was like, we needed a proper fucking breakfast. Mm-hmm. So there's a story I forgot while we were out there. And Andy took us to this fucking place and straight up hooked us up with a heaping plate of food. It was fucking perfect.
My God.
But but I'd been dealing with Zach before that. And then like, I don't know how that fucking email got up and whatever. But no, so we'll be out there.
Like, it's so hard coming from CrossFit Football to a job where, yeah, you actually like have strict vacation time and honestly, like the sleeping thing too, it takes like a while to recover from just 3 a.m. to noon type work and stuff. But
also, since you've left, we've enacted an official vacation policy here.
You have not.
Yeah, no. So like when you get back from vacation, you have to let the other person know you were on vacation.
Yes.
Where the fuck were you? I was on vacation.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, all right. That's great.
But that's no problem. All right, see you guys.
All right, bye. Bye, Tex.
Bye later.
Now it's time for you to empower your performance. Don't forget to follow everything Power Athlete by finding us on Instagram under the name @PowerAthleteHQ. And also be sure to head to trainheroic.com to find the latest training programs coming out of Power Athlete HQ. Whether your goal is speed, power, strength, or daily grind, we have a program free of fluff that will get you there. Training for performance is what we do. Until next time, bye!